Welcome to stop number 3 on the CK Fish virtual tour. I'm Eleanor Hines with Resources. For this stop, if you were to be on site, you would be standing in front of the Starfish sign by the entrance. Starfish is the current operator of the site but not responsible for the legacy contamination. Previous port tenants at the site contributed to the contamination, and the port is the responsible party for moving forward with the cleanup, which is talked about in other stops on this tour. I'm here to tell you more about the MACA, or Model Toxics Control Act process. October 12th through November 10th of 2020 is an open public comment period on the agreed order and public participation plan, which are both part of the MACA process. So you may want to know a little bit more about MACA. Stay tuned for the last stop on this virtual tour for more details on how you can stay up to speed with what's happening at this site, other sites, and how to participate in the public process. MACA was passed as a Washington State Citizens Initiative in 1988 with the intent of speeding up cleanups of our state's legacy contaminated sites. Today, the Blaine Harbor area has 3 MACA sites, the CK Fish site here being one of those. The MACA process starts with what's called site discovery. Someone has to first identify that a site may be contaminated and report it to Washington Department of Ecology. This site was noticed in about 2016 when an oil sheen appeared on the surface of marine waters coming from underneath the pier. Ecology then conducted what's called an initial investigation to evaluate the potential risk to human health and the environment at the site based on exposure potential and severity of the hazard. For example, was the reported oil sheen the result of a leaking underground storage tank, or was it just a few drops of oil that were spilled? Spoiler alert, here it was not just a little bit of oil spilled. If you're wondering what an agreed order is, it is a legal agreement between Ecology and potentially liable persons, or those entities who agree to work with Ecology to get the site cleaned up. The purpose of the agreed order is to protect human health and the environment. It ensures that a cleanup happens in a timely manner according to the Washington State's Model Toxics Control Act. A public participation plan is a commitment to provide the public with timely information and meaningful opportunities to participate in the cleanup process. It describes the planned public involvement activities and addresses plan updates and amendments. Both the agreed order and public participation plan can be updated at a later time to reflect new information and timelines. The next step is then to conduct a remedial investigation and feasibility study. These are done by consultants that work with Ecology and the potentially liable persons, or PLPs. Here, the PLP is the Port of Bellingham. Starfish currently operates on the property, however, is not responsible for the contaminants. Many times, these two steps are combined into a single report and put out for public comment. The remedial investigation looks at the nature and extent of contamination, i.e., where the contamination may have traveled to, as well as potential impacts to human health and the environment. In the feasibility study, an array of cleanup actions may be presented. During the public comment period, folks can comment on these alternatives and Ecology will address each comment submitted in the process. Next comes the draft cleanup action plan, which further details the preferred alternative cleanup action identified in the feasibility study. This will also be open for a public comment period. While this step usually happens separately from the remedial investigation and feasibility study, occasionally it could be included during the same public comment period if there is a very clear cleanup alternative, such as the full removal of contaminants. After the cleanup action plan, the next step is to refine the cleanup action plan even more with the engineering design report, which dives even deeper into details of construction for the cleanup plan. Following the engineering design report is the actual cleanup where construction happens on site to get the site cleaned up. The final cleanup will be done under another legal agreement, which will also be available for public review and comment. Once the site has been cleaned up, monitoring and site use controls are then implemented. Monitoring makes sure that the cleanup action worked as intended, while site use controls restrict and prohibit activities that could disturb the cleanup. And finally, periodic reviews, typically 5 years after cleanup, are done to ensure the cleanup meets standards and requirements. These periodic reviews are also open to public review and comment. If these are met, then the next step is to remove the site from the hazardous site list. At any time during this process, what's called an interim action may occur to partially address contamination. This could happen at this site. Next up, Ben Howard from the Port of Bellingham will talk more about this site, so keep following the virtual tour to find out more.